Welcome to the Benning Report. Coming up in this edition, Fort Benning welcomes back one unit from Africa and says farewell to another.
And armor students conquer Bradleys.
Later, the Eli Young Band rocks the Fort Benning community. Welcome to the Benning Report. I'm David Wright.
And I'm Katie Cook with the Fort Benning Public Affairs Office. Thanks for watching.
The 463rd Medical Detachment 14th Combat Support Hospital welcomed home 4 soldiers returning from Liberia, where they were serving as part of the Response Support Force for Operation United Assistance.
A ceremony was held at Freedom Hall, and I was there for the reunion. During their 4-month deployment, the 463rd participated in over 250 missions and inspected over $4 million worth of operational rations to support the Department of Defense's effort to contain the Ebola virus outbreak in Liberia and Western Africa.
We're proud that our unit was able to participate in this very good cause, and the mere fact that we made a difference coming back, and there was a difference in the change in the environment itself and the people's attitudes. I think we're pretty proud of that.
These soldiers were tasked to provide food inspection services for the U.S. service members assisting with the containment efforts in the country. To ensure their safety, the 463rd participated in several specialized training events prior to entering the Ebola-affected region.
We had a great deal of added training that was adopted by the United States Army, some of it from the CDC and World Health Organization, on how to handle Ebola samples and Ebola patients. There was never any anticipation that my troops would be in contact, but everybody got that training before they went down.
In addition to the 250 missions, these 4 soldiers logged over 5,000 road miles across the country, investigated 5 epidemiological outbreaks, and conducted more than 90 dining facility sanitation assessments. But for one soldier, this mission meant a lot more.
So to me, I was so excited to go because I'm from Kenya, so I wanted to go help like my fellow Africans. And then I have a passion for my job, and then I love my unit. So I wanted to go represent my unit.
As a precautionary measure, before they returned home to Fort Benning, the soldiers underwent a 21-day observation period at a medical facility in Virginia.
Being back home feels great, seeing all your family members again. The feeling is just great walking into this, everybody's there. I think everybody's probably glad we're back home too. I think so. I mean, it's a great, happy feeling.
Katie Cook, Fort Benning TV. While in Liberia, the 463rd performed its food surveillance mission in mobile lab units.
A compound next to Lawson Army Airfield at Fort Benning is lined with these lab units and other contingency equipment ready for future deployments to countries like Liberia. Bob Kaiser fills us in on how that equipment is used.
Ensuring that food used by soldiers and civilians overseas is safe is the job of Army Soldier Food Inspectors. Soldiers like those just returning from Liberia operate a surveillance food lab.
Connex boxes like this one are used for the surveillance food laboratory. They are air-shipped when required.
At Fort Benning, ready-stored Connex boxes are packed with the equipment used overseas to stock a lab. Sergeant Lexington Cooper is a recent graduate of the Surveillance Food Laboratory Manager course at Joint Base San Antonio's Fort Sam Houston.
pH strips used for water and pipettes used to apply samples to Petri film are also included.
Everything from pre-packed test equipment, refrigerators, even incubators are on hand. The lab is used to ensure food often obtained overseas is safe for forward-deployed soldiers and civilians. Even more important than the equipment is the soldier food inspectors themselves, who use sight and smell to identify food deterioration. Deployed food inspectors rule out dangerous contaminants. Suspicious items are packed and sent stateside for further testing. Meanwhile, food sources with questionable content are suspended until a safe confirmation is received from the Food Analysis and Diagnostic Lab at Fort Sam Houston, San Antonio. Bob Kaiser, Fort Benning TV.
Even with the 463rd Veterinarian Services return, Fort Benning's support of the humanitarian mission in West Africa continues. Americans are still on the ground in the region, so the 14th Cash deployed to support them.
The busy week for the 14th Combat Support Hospital continued.
Just a couple of days after friends and family welcomed back the 463rd Veterinarian Detachment, another group gathered for deployment. The 14th Cash Surgical Detachment assembled at Freedom Hall for Deputy Commander Lieutenant Colonel Richard Morton and others to officially send them on their way. They are deploying to Liberia, Africa to provide surgical care and support to American troops and embassy personnel in that region.
So I'm a little bit anxious about this just because it's my first time doing a humanitarian mission. I've been deployed a couple times before, but this is a different sort of experience. I'm excited because I know that we're very good at what we do, and if someone does need surgery, we'll be prepared to take care of them.
Their preparation has included the rapid donning and doffing of their surgical personal protection equipment, trauma training in Miami, and extensive training on tropical medicine. These soldiers are prepared to handle cases not only of Ebola, but other diseases common in Africa.
Everybody was a little bit concerned about Ebola, but then after our tropical medicine course, I think everybody's a little more concerned about malaria, actually.
The surgical detachment is now ready to treat non-battle disease as well as trauma. They are anxious to start their mission and see what their day-to-day is going to look like. This unit of 5 soldiers is replacing the 86th Combat Support Hospital in the region. The deployment is scheduled for a duration of 6 to 9 months. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
Senior NCOs from across the Armor School gathered in the pre-dawn darkness recently to answer a challenge set by the Armor School Command Sergeant Major Michael Clemens.
Were they physically fit, mentally tough? Bragging rights were on the line for the Armor School PT Challenge. Senior NCOs lead busy lives. This group of First Sergeants, Master Sergeants, and Sergeants Major from the Armor School made time during their pre-dawn hours for the Armor School Physical Training Challenge. The objective: one team from each Armor School unit must make it through the events in the shortest time possible. The 10 teams start out with a mile run challenge, and at the end, they must assemble a Skedco, load it with sandbags, and then take off into the woods for another mile. This is immediately followed by a 25-meter Humvee push, a kickstart to the PT Challenge designed by Armor School Command Sergeant Major Michael Clemens. Clemens' goal is to challenge his senior NCOs to be fit and ready for anything.
So I try to find new things to do, keep it interesting, keep them guessing so they don't know exactly what's coming up, and they have to try to focus on a lot of different things rather than concentrating on being good on one thing.
Immediately after the physical exertion, teams must complete a written test quizzing them on basic soldier knowledge. The number of questions they answer correctly determine how many rounds they receive for the next event, a paintball shoot. As teams step to the firing line, they know this is the last chance to improve their score, because for every hit on the target, time is deducted from their final tally. Once an enlisted soldier reaches the rank of E8, expectations are high. The Army needs that soldier to lead others, not only with knowledge and experience, but even physically, often having to keep up with soldiers half their age.
You got to be physically fit for every one of these we do each quarter, because there's always going to be a physically challenging aspect of it before you go into the part that requires group thinking or individual thinking.
The quarterly PT challenges are also aimed toward team building and increasing camaraderie, while at the same time reinforcing Army values.
Oh, the expectation for a senior NCO is that they're able to complete all the tasks that we'd ask of any soldier, and the events are designed to be things that you could find on the battlefield, that you could potentially have to do someplace, and to be functional rather than just standard push-ups, sit-ups, or a run, combining a lot of different functional fitness and different training into one event.
1st Squadron 16th Cavalry take today's prize, a personalized mug in Fiddler's Green, the Armor School's bar at the Benning Club. They also walk away with bragging rights until next quarter's challenge. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
Coming up, we wrap up our series on the Army's new marksmanship training. From tanks to tank killers, some of the Army's newest armor lieutenants learn the basics of the Bradley fighting vehicle. I had a chance to visit the range and see the Bradleys in action. Let's take a look as these armor officers practice maneuver and fire. As part of their training in the Armor Basic Officer Leader course, these freshly commissioned armor officers are getting a glimpse into the infantry as they learn how to engage targets using the Bradley fighting vehicle, which is predominantly an infantry personnel carrier.
Well, Bradleys are the second most complicated platform in the Army, and it is a stabilized platform. So with it being one of the most complicated, if we can get them to be proficient with all of the tasks that are required just for a basic crew here, it's going to be easier for them to fine-tune it and advance faster once they do hit the force.
During this live fire exercise, these young leaders will execute firing engagements. 3 from the defensive positions and 3 on the offensive, allowing them to work as a crew and perfect the enemy's scanning techniques they've learned throughout ABOLC.
Bradleys work very effectively whenever you're going to do rapid and forceful type missions. If you're in a tank, they're going to know you're there. If you're in a Bradley, they're going to know you're there. So using the Bradley when your enemy is not superior than what you can actually destroy, that works out very well. And that's what we try to convey to them while they're here.
Unlike the Abrams, which supports a tank commander, a driver, and a gunner, Bradleys have the ability to carry 6 ground troops in the back in addition to the crew. Bradleys can get troops to the fight quickly and provide covering fire to suppress the enemy and armored vehicles.
It throws a little bit of a twist in it from what we've learned previously. So from the tanks, you're stationary and you're not going to be really moving from the tank, but on the Bradley side, having the dismounts in the back changes things a lot.
These armor officers may be training on Bradleys today, but when it comes to firepower, nothing compares to the shock and awe of 70 tons of wrought iron steel of a tank.
Personally, I enjoy being an armor officer because it gives you a broad aspect of controlling many things and multitasking. Rather than worrying about one single thing, you're worrying about your navigation, you're worrying about the troops, you're worrying about other vehicles, you're also scanning for other possible enemy vehicles in the areas.
Katie Cook, Fort Benning TV.
Soldiers in the Master Marksmanship training course have proven themselves when it comes to short-range marksmanship. But before they can graduate, they must now master a distance of up to 600 meters and prove they can run their own range.
It's nearing the end of the Master Marksmanship training course and students have 2 weeks left. During this time, they must prove they have what it takes to master mid-range marksmanship and the articulation to then teach all 3 levels learned at a battalion level.
You're accurate marksman. That means 2 shots for 1 target.
The reality of that mid-range engagement is first round hits aren't always expected, but if we can get a guy to understand the fundamentals and make those follow-up shots, it's just as good.
Shooting out to 600 meters in level 3, this course bridges the gap between normal marksmanship at 300 meters and long-range sniper fire. This adds a whole new element when engaging targets.
So there's 3 things you need to engage a target. First, you got to find it. And the second most important piece is you got to know how far it is, especially past 300 meters. With that 0 to 300 engagement criteria we're looking at in BRM, essentially a student or shooter or soldier can just hold center on the target, and so long as he properly applies the fundamentals, he'll achieve a hit.
With soldiers now shooting at a medium range distance, range estimation and known distance comes into play.
Now out past 300, once we start talking about drop at 4, 5, and 6, he's going to have to range it, and he's going to have to know that range so he can apply the correct hold. It's crucial. If he tried to hold center mass on a 600-meter target, he's going to miss by 6 feet.
Throughout this course, each soldier has fired around 2,600 rounds of 5.56 and 750 rounds of 9mm. Now in level 4, they put their brains against their brawn as they settle into a classroom finale where learning to run their own course is the focus.
So in level 4, students receive training on advanced wind reading, ballistics, advanced coaching. We also give them blocks of instruction in competition, what it is, how they can seek it, and how it's going to improve their marksmanship.
In addition to instruction, they must demonstrate they can assist leadership in all aspects of running this course.
They can assist them in their training, their planning of their training, their execution. They can sit down and show them how marksmanship can be implemented throughout the year and not just during the range density week.
To demonstrate their capabilities, soldiers had to pass with 80% an intense question and answer session, along with a brief to a panel of instructors.
In this brief, we're looking for the soldier's comprehension level of the doctrine that he's using, and not only understanding it, but articulating that to a commander.
For those who pass this course, they will return to their unit as a marksmanship subject matter expert. Since they are now able to run level 1 through 3 back at their units, this will not only expedite the dissemination of skills to the force, but will also change the culture of marksmanship and offer greater lethality to the force. Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
After the break, it's Knees in the Breeze at the 82nd Airborne Reunion.
From World War I engagements to the invasion of Normandy, and even the more recent Operation Enduring Freedom, the 82nd Airborne Division has quite a record of airborne accomplishments. As we honor those who served in years past, we take a look at the 82nd Airborne Division during its reunion at Fort Benning.
Veterans from the All-American Division, or more formally known as the 82nd Airborne, made its trip not by dropping in from 3,000 feet, but from Atlanta, landing on Eubanks Field with memories flooding back to them.
Welcome to 1st Battalion Airborne, 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment, and the United States Army Airborne School.
Started from the gate coming in, I told my wife, I said, I think that's where we stay before. Those are old barracks.
As they line the stands for an airborne 5,000 demonstration of current training, these paratroopers ogled at the new equipment, loving to be a part of the history and tradition that carries on today. Like Donald, who spent nearly 3 years with the unit and retired as a major with over 100 jumps.
1 minute! And when I started, we were jumping T7 parachutes, and when you went out the door, you had a 3,000 count. And now they got a T11 that's much bigger, and it's gone to a 6,000 count before it's completely open. So there's a lot of change on that.
Airborne! The eyes on the field this day have seen many generations of airborne. And from jumps to landings, Knees in the Breeze is one feeling they will never forget.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You still get the adrenaline flowing. The old jump boot stuff, outstanding, right on.
For many, it's an airborne brotherhood and a rite of passage that bonds them together. They look out for one another and look forward to every reunion. Not only for what they will see, but who they will see. Because these veterans not only fought for their country, they fought for the soldiers on their left and right.
It's a proud tradition, it's a great fraternity, and bear with it because you ain't gonna find many other guys like these guys here, I'll tell you.
But for those who wear the wings today, they have this message for you.
Just stay airborne and kick butt. That's what we're going to do.
Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
Coming up next, the Eli Young Band headlines Wingapalooza at Fort Benning.
It was cold, but it wasn't cold enough to keep thousands of die-hard country fans away from Fort Benning's Wingapalooza concert, featuring the Eli Young Band. Wrapped up in a jacket, I watched the crowd turn it on with Eli Young and other up-and-coming artists. As the gates opened, nearly 6,000 fans from the Fort Benning community rushed onto Weatherby Field, eager to see and hear their favorite country bands, which included Kelsey Ballerini, Old Dominion, and the very popular Eli Young Band. But for some soldiers, this concert was more than just a good time.
To me, it still shows that there's American people out there still ready to show the American soldiers that well, they still care, they still love us, they still think about us, still appreciative. For a high-speed country singer to come out and show his appreciation for the American soldiers, I think it's a big deal. He's got my support.
The concert was the product of Fort Benning winning the AAFES Wing Eating Contest in 2014 and was sponsored by the Fort Benning Directorate of Family Morale, Welfare, and Recreation.
The family members, you know, sometimes they're without their soldier, you know, their soldier may work long, hard hours, and so we want to make sure that they have something that they can come out and do free, fun family activities, things that, you know, they may not get if they weren't in the military.
Despite the cold weather, concertgoers of all ages found a fun way to keep warm. Dancing. And dancing. Did I mention dancing? And what's a concert without snacks?
Well, I mean, who wants to come to a concert and not eat a funnel cake? So we have great vendors that come out here. So we've got corn dogs, we've got funnel cakes, we've got pizza, we've got everything you can imagine.
Did I mention there was dancing? Katie Cook, Fort Benning TV.
Well, that looks like everybody had fun, but what they need is more cowbell.
No.
Sure, I can play the cowbell. Maybe they'll let me join.
Or you could go tour on the road by yourself. Like now. Like now. Go. That will bring this edition of the Benning Report to an end, but you can watch these stories and others on youtube.com/BenningTV or at benning.army.mil. And you can also like us on Facebook. From the Public Affairs Office, thanks for watching.